Do you want better renderings, but you're not sure where to start? Well, I recently gave a webinar lecture and demo about how I create photorealistic renderings like this. So what we've got here is an hour-long recording for you to watch. I go through all the steps that I use to create beautiful images. And it really boils down to three different things. And I think it's really important that you go through each of these and you make sure your work has this, or it's just not going to stick out. So anyways, part of this, you'll also get a free model that you can follow along, and you can do this yourself at your own time. Anyways, that's it for now. Enjoy. Yeah, well, thank you everybody for coming out on a Saturday. I know last time we did our webinar, everyone seemed to agree that the weekend seemed to be the best time for this. But thank you for coming. Always appreciate it. And this is kind of like a continuation of our Photoreal Formula webinar series. Every couple of weeks we hold this with like a different project. I dive into it, we share it with you guys. You can follow along and like really learn from me. And we've got a lot of exciting stuff to cover today, so I'm just gonna get right into it. Yeah, today's gonna be a fun one, so buckle up, everyone. But thank you again for attending. So this is kind of my stance right now. I work with so many people that are entering the world of ArchViz, and I've noticed that renderings actually kind of get people in trouble because it's not great quality. I've noticed that people, always kind of rely on making very, very clean renderings. They try to be as correct as possible, and then like the secret sauce, that's something that's always missing, and that's what I want to talk a lot about. Is feeling things through rendering, storytelling, and all that. And what I've noticed is when your renderings are really bad and they get you in trouble, you get completely passed over. People don't care about the design, and my goal is to kind of help you fix that, right? So I've had situations where we mess up something, there's a miscommunication, and then you get ghosted, and that's like the worst feeling because you put all this time and effort and then the client disappears. I don't want that to happen to you guys. That happened a long time ago, and it's one of those things I'm like, never again. And I feel like the world of ArchViz right now is just so saturated with people that it's sometimes frustrating when you see like projects go to somebody else and you're like, hey, I thought I was pretty good. Why is it going to them? What are they doing? So I want to talk about how to elevate your game, and that's why we do these webinars. I'm here to help you guys to fix all that. Okay. So on today's webinar, I have two hopes for everyone. Okay. My first hope is that what you learn here equips you to turn this kind of work into your own. And this is actually the project we're going to be working on. So that's fun. So this isn't like made up. This is real. This is actually what we're going to be breaking down in our demo. You guys know I always like to do a little bit of a lecture and then we get right into it. But my goal with everything I'm doing, the ArchViz Academy, the YouTube, is to elevate the D5 render community. I feel like you guys are awesome, and like this is the least I could do. My second hope is if it feels right for you, I've got an amazing offer I want you to invest in at the end of this, okay? And that you move on it quick, fast, and in a hurry, because I've got some super time-sensitive things in there that I think are going to be really, really useful for everyone. So one thing I've noticed, and I talk a lot about ArchViz training, and I've been doing this for so long, 15 years of this, and it's taken me so long to get to this point. So what I want to point out is I feel like there's a cost to invest, there's an upfront cost, but then the cost to not invest is so much worse. That was 15 years of my time spending money on like these random tutorials, these random models, and like not actually learning from it. So everything I'm doing is to fix this, okay? So I'm teeing this up so you guys understand, because right now, a lot of you get the value gradually from my videos on YouTube, but I do want to point out you can get a lot of value immediately, and we're going to talk about how to do that later on. So pay attention, stay focused, and if you don't know me and like why I talk about this stuff, my name is Andy Crisoforo. I've been doing ArchViz forever. I'm a licensed architect. I am the lead AI and visualization guy at KPF, one of the largest firms in the world. I'm also a D5 certified instructor. I teach this professionally, and I've been, YouTubing for almost a year. And I talk about this stuff all over the world through conferences. It's my passion at this point. So at this point in my life, my goal is to get this education out because it doesn't do me any good if it's all in here, right? So this is our current big problem in the world of ArchViz and people getting started. It's like you create these renderings, they're kind of bland, they feel a little safe. You know, you think they're polished, but they're actually flat, and nobody's telling you this. And then, you know, again, I keep harping on this thing of correct, where people are like, "Hey, I modeled everything perfectly, the walls look great," but that's not actually what this is all about. Real clients do not care about it being 100% correct. They care to some degree, but they want to feel something. And if you ever work in real estate, right? Work in real estate or with developers, that is the big thing. Even if you work with homeowners, you want them to feel something, you want them to resonate. You know, that's why all these like real estate videos are like super flashy and they're staged and everything. They want you to feel like, hey, this could be my life. This could transform my life. I could feel better. ArchViz is the same thing. ArchViz is marketing. Okay. Like we need to understand that. And I feel like people starting out do not realize that. And it's really unfortunate. And that's why I keep talking about this. So a lot of people I've talked to, it's always the same story. You know, nobody's doing something structured. It's always random tutorial after tutorial. It doesn't really apply to your project. You've got no one to talk to because a lot of us learn this like online. We don't go to college for this. There's no guide. You worry about like the software details, but not the actual narrative and the storytelling side. And then you see somebody do something and then you just copy their style and you're like, okay, I don't know why this works. It looks good, but I don't know why. So again, everything I'm doing is to kind of fix this. So if I wasn't clear enough, this is the harsh truth of ArchViz. If your image doesn't move people, it's useless, okay? It's one thing to make a pretty rendering. It's another thing to make a rendering that creates emotion, okay? If you get nothing else out of this webinar, remember that, okay? That's the biggest thing that people forget about because ArchViz is marketing, okay? Don't forget that. Flat renders lose projects, it makes people upset, and it doesn't do any good, right? If you're not selling ideas, then what was the point of the whole project? You know, again, ArchViz is marketing. If our images aren't driving sales or driving emotion, then there's no point of making them. And if you do it poorly, they don't reflect your skills. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. And what I've also learned by going through this process, learning by yourself sucks. And that's why I've been working so hard to create communities through YouTube and the ArchViz Academy to help people, because that I feel like crowdsourcing knowledge is honestly the best way to learn. So what I don't want you to do anymore is tweaking renderings for hours with no direction, with no payoff, generating renderings that feel flat, not knowing what's wrong with an image. We're going to fix that. And just feeling stuck while everyone else is improving their work. Again, I'm going to try and fix this for you. That's my goal. So a little personal story. This is a rendering, and it's okay to laugh at this, okay? This is a rendering I made 15 years ago. It was actually my first rendering. I think it was Podium in SketchUp. So this was in school, and I thought it looked really good because I was 15 years ago and I was young and dumb, right? And I remember being so proud of this and then going into Final Crit and I got absolutely murdered. I got murdered because the design actually did suck, but the rendering quality did nothing for me. You know, the lighting was bad, the materials were bad, everything was really bad about the image, right? And because of that, the critics spent most of the time just talking about how crappy my image was. So fast forward a couple years later, we have an intern in our office. They're doing renderings, and the renderings aren't that great, but we're in a rush. We have a deadline. We meet with the client, and the client doesn't even care about the design at this point. They're just talking about how bad the rendering is. So I point this out because you can get in a lot of trouble with bad renderings, and it's funny because you think the renderings will help you, help the project, especially even the world in architecture. But if you do it wrong, you're gonna be made fun of, unfortunately. And that's why I'm doing all this, so this never happens, because this sucks. Like 15 years ago, I still remember this crit. This actually like gave me focus into figuring out like I never want this to happen again. What do I have to learn? And literally here I am 15 years ago talking about how to be better in ArchViz because of that one moment in school. Yeah, maybe it's trauma, but I don't want anyone to do that. And you know, looking back, it is embarrassing. Like, what am I thinking here with any of this? So, anyways, yeah, Damien, that's a great question. I wonder if anyone else has had that happen, whether in school or professionally, where your rendering just like goes south. But really, Now that we talked about all the bad stuff, why does this all matter, right? We want to make our designs memorable, not forgettable. We want to make things feel real. That's why we strive for photorealism in some cases. And I'll also say stylized renderings, I feel like get slept on. I feel like they're just as important in the early conceptual phases because, again, renderings can get you in trouble if they're not used properly. Like we've had situations where we present a concept design, looks polished, photorealistic, and the client's like, well, we never talked about the materiality. Like, what is all this? So that's why I do like the stylized stuff. And, I think that's something we shouldn't forget about in the world of ArchViz and art, of course. Yeah, and people definitely agree here, right? The other thing with renderings is if you're helping architects, and the reason I talk about architects is that I've noticed a lot of the people I work with at the office as well as through the community, you're either coming from the world of architecture and design and you're trying to upskill, or you're a traditional 3D ArchViz artist. But what's interesting with how the market is moving, there's a lot of competitions out there, a lot of RFPs, that basically bids, and it really comes down to the image that resonates the most with the client, and that's how you're winning jobs. Sometimes it's not even like the best design wins. It's just like, hey, this looks really cool. This could be like great for the neighborhood because the image conveyed that. I hope you guys are seeing like this recurring theme of storytelling. And then one of my favorite, stories is once I started getting decent at ArchViz, let's say maybe like 10 years ago, I noticed that if we actually did a good job replicating the floor plans and then conveying the storytelling, we actually had our approvals go a lot faster. We weren't spending as long in schematic design. Instead of going from 3 months, we were going to a month because they understood it. Because clients can't read 2D plans; they're not trained for this. Us, the world of architecture, AEC, ArchViz, we learn how to read 3D floor plans. But a random developer, they may have experience learning floor plans, but that's not their job. It's your job to explain it to them, right? So Giannis has a great example here. My first render 15 years ago was worse than Andy's, and back then I was thinking it was much greater than Andy was thinking about his. I was just as ecstatic with that new ability. Yeah, absolutely agree. I there's I don't want to embarrass anyone, but I posted that rendering I showed on Facebook 15 years ago, and all my friends were like, "Oh my God, dude, this is sick. This is like so photorealistic." And I was just like, I can't even imagine there was a time that we thought that looked good. But anyways, I want to talk about my solution now that I've ranted about everything that's wrong here. My goals for you and what I want you to learn today, especially if you like my teaching style, this is the special invitation to the offer that I have at the end of this. Okay, it's something built for people like us, and we're going to talk a lot more about that. But this is what I'm trying to do here. I want you to learn this 3-step formula. I've talked about it in the past. It's nothing crazy, but it's so plain and simple, and I don't understand why people don't follow it. Because once I go through it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. I'm going to be going through all my tips and tricks on how I build a scene that looks beautiful. What works, what doesn't work, and just simple things I'm going to point out in D5, of course. So this is really what the formula comes down to. We basically have 3 components. You've got 1, model and materials, 2, lighting and composition, 3, story and environment. And I'd love to know, just drop it in the chat, a number, which one you struggle with the most, because I have a good hunch what it is, but I'd love to hear from everyone. So lighting and composition is a huge one. Yeah, materials can be tricky. Another 2, agreed. Yeah, seeing a lot of 2s. Yeah, so here's the reality. It's like they're all so closely related, and it's like you can't just do poorly on one and expect the other ones to pick up the weight. They need to be evenly distributed to some degree. Otherwise, something just looks really bad. It doesn't matter if you have a beautiful composition and then your materials and model sucks, right? You can't have a story if the model looks bad, or you can't have a story if your lighting is off. So they're all related. Yeah, and yeah, I see a couple of people saying like 3 is the hardest. I completely agree. I think 3 is the hardest because 1 and 2 is what everyone talks about. Everyone talks about 1 and 2, and that's why I spent the past 15 minutes talking about how everyone's sleeping on 3. 3 is the difference between a good image and an amazing image. All right, sorry, Lexmana. I will speak slower. I get so hyped about this. I get so excited that I talk talk quickly. I'll slow it down. Um, but yeah, 1 and 2 is the biggest thing people talk about, and I think it's because it's the low hanging fruit. Just because everyone needs a model, everyone needs a material, everyone needs to light, and then this is kind of like, I don't know, the secret sauce that people don't realize is actually here. Um, so anyways, that's that. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about this. So model and materials. I'm going to talk briefly about this, and then we'll get into all the fun stuff. So this is the foundation of architecture, having a beautiful material with a beautiful model. Okay, they go hand in hand. If you have an ugly model and you're missing details, and I always show this image because I feel like people always forget, like in a kitchen, in a staircase, and around doorways, you've got so many little components, and whenever I review beginners work, they're always missing something. So like, take a window, you've got the actual window frame. This is double hung, so it's got like 2 frames. Then you've got the actual trim around it. Then we've got like wall paneling. Then we've got all the riser details for the staircase. You've got the railing. You've got the post, the newels. Then you've got the door frame, and you've got the lower trim. And then you actually have like kitchen hardware, and then kitchen cabinetry, and then you've got different grains of wood. And so my point is, in just a small little section of this house we modeled, this one corner, there's like 10 different things you need to model. And that, again, that's one corner of a house. So my point is, this scales up everywhere. Like if you've got a larger project, you're going to have a lot more to model. And if you aren't showing all this, it's going to look bland and crappy. And if you don't have this existing here, the substrate for your materials, it doesn't matter how good your materials are because they have nowhere to live. And with materials, we want everything to be, PBR, photorealistic in terms of, does it have any, weathering? Does it have a normal map or displacement map? Does the base color map look like the thing? Is it seamless? We don't want something tiling. So again, this is the stepping stone. If you have problems with this, like this is where you need to really, really just look at reference images and be like, hey, does this look like the thing I'm trying to recreate? If you guys ever watch my follow along project tutorials, I always have, my reference images up and I'm like, does this look right? And that's the simplest way. So then lighting and composition. These are several of my favorite renderings. I love the guys over at Plump. They're a great team. And, it's one of those things, lighting and composition, you guys were saying, struggle a lot with, because if you do it wrong, you lose focus. And I love this image here because think of, you look at the image immediately, these people are kind of lit up because of the lighting and the composition and the geometry helping you out. You've got the columns essentially adding as leading lines, and then you've got this circular, railing that's kind of framing this, and then you've got this circle down here, and it's just like all these signals are pointing towards the center. And that's the crazy thing about ArchViz that people often forget. Light, like, I don't know, we were kind of like, I don't know, what are those bugs, like mosquitoes. Like we're so attracted to light, and I feel like people forget that humans love light. Put light on your building, on what you want to focus on. Like this tree here, this just glows against the background because everything is kind of like in the shadow. It's the same thing here. Same thing with this lower area. This retail area pops because of the light. Okay, so whenever I'm critiquing people and I say like, light up your building, or like have something point towards your building, usually we use like shadows, because shadows are pretty easy. You see how they're like pointing towards the people? That's an easy win. So lighting composition is so simple. Yeah, and Sanda has a great point here. To get the model properly, it's key. It's definitely key for great visuals. Think about being in your room and look at the details of the geometry, not even the furniture, just the room itself, the details in the door, the window, the cornice. Exactly. Like that's the substrate, that's the foundation. If you don't have that, you've got nothing. Like it's so important. And then let's talk a little bit about story and environment. So this is generally like where I feel like beginners kind of live. They've got like the model there, the materials kind of suck, but then they just like plop a person and like some cars and they call it a day. And it's like a weird like camera position. It's not like eye height or anything. But then if you look at somebody's work who knows what they're doing with like, being on the street, like it looks like we're like sitting here at this little cafe and we're looking out, we see the people, we see the cars, rushing by, and the dramatic skyline, like all this is coming along nicely. We've got a beautiful model. We see like the interior and everything. We see the entourage, and it's just like the difference is literally night and day, right? Catch my pun there. But that's something I feel like people just keep forgetting about. So we're going to talk a lot about this just to elevate your work. So I know you guys come to these webinars for our fun little demos, but this is what we're going to be doing. I didn't lie. This is what we'll be making. It's one of those files where I've got it mostly set up, and we're going to be walking through what makes up each step, so you can do the same thing. And because we're so nice, we're giving you this file for free. We actually had somebody from our community work on this. That was great. Gave them some work, which was awesome. Love supporting the community, and they managed to build this scene. So Damien is going to drop that Dropbox link in the chat. Feel free to download this and follow along. And there it is. Just make sure you hit download. That's all you have to do. Don't overthink it. Once it's downloaded, you're going to run this DRS, and I am going to hop over to D5. So while you guys are like downloading it and all that, I'm just going to be talking a little bit about all this. Yeah, no problem. I love sharing these models, and it's great that I'm able to give work to people in the community. I think that's very important, because I feel like, yeah, while people are downloading, I'll go on a little rant, but I do feel like a lot of people are either like struggling in a third world country, because people are abusing that, especially with the US dollar, or AI is taking a lot of jobs, and it really frustrates me. So trying to help there. So this is where we're at, and one of my new favorite features in 2.11 is we have scene groups. So check this out. It's basically folders for our groups. So I have this kind of nicely set up, so it'll trigger the correct layers and everything, so I can talk about this. But if you want to get straight into the juicy stuff, you can just click this hero image, and now you've got this great scene that you can kind of take apart. But I want to talk about why this works, why that image is beautiful, and all of that. So right off the start, kind of the start of this project, it's like we knew we wanted to have a beautiful modern house in some sort of like forested area with a lake. And so what I feel like a lot of people don't realize, the terrain tools in D5 are actually like spectacular and really good. So if I come down here, just look at our terrain here. Notice how nothing is flat. This is something that drives me nuts with a lot of beginners, where they just put like a flat plane and they're like, hey, that's my terrain. No, the real world does not work like that. There's crazy grading and everything. You also have grading, so the water can shed from the building and ruin your foundations and everything. So you've got that, and this is all easily done when you click terrain with your sculpt tools. All we do is just like a couple clicks here and there. I'm going to go over here and just like add a little bit of noise, You might be able to hear my mouse, my mouse click. Just a couple little clicks. You can play with the strength and everything, the brush texture. You can definitely like go downwards and everything, but that's how you add just simple variation to your terrain. It should never be flat. There's like no real flat world out there. I mean, there's probably a couple of US states that I hear are flatter than pancakes, but that's not the norm. Okay. Even like in your urban cities where you've got like sidewalks and everything has some sort of slope or grade to it. It's not flat. That's not true. Some people will model it like that just for the sake of being a little lazy, but it's not real life. The other powerful thing with the terrain system is, don't forget, you have a whole paint library. Okay, so you have 6 ground texture slots that you can host. So here we literally keeping it simple: grassland and kind of like this gravel for around our little lake here. Because if you ever look at an image of like a lake or pond going into the grass, it's not like grass goes right into it. It's kind of like gravel, pebbles, and all that. So that is this transition around here. Okay. To do this, if you want to make a new one, all you have to do is just hit, this plus button, and then you can choose a material of you want. And what I like about this system that some people kind of forget is scatter can actually be hosted by a material. So what I mean by that is if I were to come right over here and just start painting, and you don't have to do this, this area that I painted can actually get picked up by our good friend scatter over here. If you hit select material, it takes a little finessing, but look at that. You can actually target specific regions. So if you're clever enough, you can actually paint where bigger trees should be, or like bushes should be, or where grass should be, and then you're just scattering that instead of the whole world. Because if you scatter this whole area, it would actually slow down your computer and it wouldn't be great. So notice how the gravel is being picked up as well. So don't forget that trick. Like that's really, really important. The other thing with the terrain system is you do have all your brush history. I feel like a lot of people starting out don't realize that anything you've painted actually lives on there, not in the outliner. Okay, so I'm going to expand this so you can see everything. And we're going to break down all the different layers we have here. So this one, these are all our little trees. And so we've got a mix of little trees, medium trees, and big trees, because when you're down here and you're doing your perspectives, you never want to see this guy. You never want to see that guy, because that basically destroys the illusion that this could be a real photo. It basically makes it look like it's CGI and the project's floating in the middle of the world. So you could model a little berm, which is like a little hill with your terrain, or you can use some trees, or you could use some backdrop planes that you can get from the asset library. Okay, so you've got a couple options there, but you could see we're basically going in layers. Okay, we're not doing it all in one. It's a little bit easier to just control it and say like, hey, now I'm going to do my rock pass, and here I'm going to do my larger tree pass, and then here I'm going to do like my water lily decals, that kind of stuff. Do it this way instead of one brush, because if you have a brush that does the small trees and a bush and a tall tree, it basically you're going to get this like weird look where it's taking a slot of what could be a large tree. So like imagine this was a small tree and that was a bush and that was a big tree. It's kind of like all over the place. You're going to have a lot more control if you do it this way. The other nice thing about this is don't forget you have all these amazing tools where you can basically add this as a preset, which gets saved to your local library. And this I feel like people forget about all the time. You have a local library here where you can save presets, materials, and models. Mine is empty because I was lazy and did not migrate everything, but you can do that, and that's great for future projects. So you're like, hey, I've dialed in this tree. It's this tree brush. I don't want to remake this. Again, that's an efficiency thing. Save that there. You can also apply it directly to your brush, so you can just pick it up again, and then you could easily, start erasing as needed. So don't sleep on the brush system, okay? So recap there. We've got sculpting, we've got painting, and then we've got brushing, all to create this kind of like natural looking scene. So then I'm just gonna go in here, and at this point, I'm not saying you do like the terrain before you import the building, but at some point you import the building and you start crafting your landscape around that. I just did that because I feel like the terrain needs its own thing. Your building import, this could be either live synced or it could be direct imported. It doesn't matter. It comes out to the same thing as long as your materials. And I'm seeing that people are saying unable to download the file. Are you getting any error on why you can't download the file? Okay, so it's downloading for Hussein. Okay, so it seems like it's working for people. No, all good. Yeah, it's just a big file. Yeah, 2.5 gigs. I would say try again. I don't know if it's maybe like a bandwidth thing, or maybe I don't know. Dropbox is storage issue. Yeah, don't add it to your Dropbox. Yeah, that's a good point. Don't add it to your Dropbox. Just hit download, and then it'll prompt you. Do you want to like log in or not? Don't log in, and that way you can avoid that storage issue. Okay, so once you get your building in there, then you can kind of craft how tall the trees should be. You don't want them to be too tall, okay? So you want them to be slightly above the building, because it's okay to have negative space being your your sky, okay? The sky is totally fine. You want to have some negative space because you want to be able to breathe, okay? Because if you can't breathe, the image feels a little cluttered. It's okay to have open sky. I feel like people just make trees like this high up here, and then there's like no separation between the architecture and the sky. So we always do a little bit above the building so you can kind of see like the tips, at around eye height. So it gives it like a nice background and then a midground being where the building is. Okay. So you've got that. Then all this grass that we've got here, this is all brushed. And we actually did this from an optimization point of view. So you see how it ends here instead of going all the way out there. That's just us being a little clever because we don't want to actually like bog down our file too much because that's the problem with scatter, right? It could just like fill up everything. And I also don't like using the 3D grass material because you can't customize it as much. So anyways, once we're at this point, what we need to worry about is our lighting and just making sure that all the materials are good. So what I always do if I'm using like the D5 asset library, most of them are really good, but I need to double check that my normal map is working. I've got a roughness map and that I've got round corner on. That way I've got these nice edges, and then I can toggle on triplanar or UV randomizer in order for those to kind of mix up the texture if I'm getting any weird, tiling and it's not seamless. Okay. So I do that for everything. Again, materials, very, very important. So people keep asking for the link. Let me just grab that, or if Damien can grab that, put it in there. Okay, great. All right, cool. So yeah, materials and the model. So this model is actually pretty nice. It's actually very, very, very simple. So let me just turn the sky a little bit, the light a little bit. So you can see we've got like a nice soffit here. We've got a chimney, a bunch of slats. It's nothing crazy, but because everything's detailed in a way where it looks like an actual building, it feels realistic. That's step one. Make sure your building looks real, then start adding all the materials. We're using very, very simple materials here. We've got our wood slats, we've got this kind of like stucco, and we've got our stone here. And our stone is using displacement, and we all know that we're begging D5 to get proper displacement out there. If you didn't hear the news, they did move the displacement feature request from planning to in progress. So that's huge. So I'll show you how I fix this in the AI enhancer. But anyways, once you get that in there, the materials and the model comes down to your lighting. Okay. Yeah, definitely agree, Hitchum. I personally always use HDRI, and the reason I use HDRI is because I get total control over the rotation of my sky. It gives me the best shadow quality, the best lighting quality. And if I check mark custom and sun, I've got full control over intensity, the sun disk radius, and the rotation of the sun. Okay. That's really important. If you don't realize this, in geo and sky, you only have this guy. You actually don't really have much control about how intense the sun is unless you go to custom, and then you have to check mark custom daytime, and then you get sunlight intensity and all this. But in my opinion, it's like, why would I go through two tabs to edit my sun when I could just do it in the HDRI? Yeah. And then Hussein's asking where to find good HDRI. I also will throw in ambient CG in there. I also like them a lot. Ambient CG, they're free. You get free materials and HDRIs from there. They're great. They're not sponsoring us or anything, but maybe one day. But I do like them. And then Joe's asking, where do I get PBR materials? Yeah, it's either like Polygon, Ambient CG, Polyhaven. Then there's like Quixel sometimes, and then sometimes we just like make it ourselves. But I will say, literally 90% of the materials are coming from the asset library. Like my metals, my glass, like all the big things come from there. It's only the bathrooms where it's like a very particular tile that comes from the interior designer, and then we need to do some like Photoshop magic. But now with AI Material Snap, for those that don't know, I could actually just like upload a photo here, and then I could use AI to do that for me. So glad that's around. But But yeah, so now that we've got that, we've got lighting in a good spot. Again, I always use HDRI. Sometimes I'll use a little bit of fog if I want some more depth between my background, my midground, and foreground. And this is actually one of the things that makes renderings feel flat when you don't have that. So when someone says, "Oh, your image looks flat," probably means there's like no sunlight and there's no clear distinction between background, midground, and foreground. Okay. Highly recommend you study photography and everything because that's where I'm coming up with all this stuff. It's not like I make it up. Like I've learned this stuff. I learn it and I teach it. So now that that's all done, I'm going to switch here and I want to talk about all the different stuff that we added here because here's the funny thing. The difference between like this image and this scene, it's honestly sun position and entourage. Like that's the crazy thing. It's like you've got the models, you've got the materials, right? Then once you dial in the lighting, it's just a layering game. So I want to go through all the things that we're adding here to make this look really, really realistic. So I'm going to just switch to perspective. Good. So one thing that we wanted to add here was this courtyard here was pretty empty before. And here we had no ivy, so a little before and after. And just like look at how plain that looks. And typically, you know, you're going to have some ivy, right? We're looking at reference photos. Typically, courtyards are going to have some trees, and then typically you're going to have some sort of pathing, right? So this is all the stuff we get from just looking at reference photos. You can get this, you know, from just Google Images or Pinterest or looking at ArcDaily, and you can see what makes sense. Same thing with this pond, right? This transition here, like this isn't like any scatter preset or anything. This is us painting all these rocks, and look at that. Are those little fish? Yeah, we put fish in there because fish life, you know, it's part of the storytelling. Like this is a real, you know, living thing. And I feel like it's such a simple thing to just grab some animals and drop them in. It looks lovely. I mean, imagine doing an animation and you see like the fish come by and then like a car whiz by. You know, those are the types of things that humans like to see in renderings and videos. Okay, so let's take a little look at this. I have a layer here. Yes, make sure you're using layers for my vegetation. If you're not sure how to sort and filter, you can actually just go right here and you can sort for nature. And this is going to show you everything here that's related to that category. All you have to do is Control A, and then you can change the layer it's on. Like there's no reason not to have layers. The worst thing is like inheriting a project from someone and they never used layers. Like that's come on, we're better than that. So this is like my typical structure. I'll do something with light because there's like actual lights in here, and the light is to add some focus on the piano here. We added like a simple piano mesh here, just so it adds some life, some realism here, and it doesn't make the building look so dark. So that's why we have lights. Then we've got the vegetation, then we've got terrain, and then I'll just show you what this is. This is there's basically anything related around the pond. I kind of wanted to have that as part of the terrain, and the water. The water is actually just a simple plane. Look at that. So this, let me just turn it on and off. Like that's the whole illusion. All we did was we sculpted out that pond area and we dropped this in, and it's just a simple water material. You can see this. It's the dark blue pool water model or material from D5. And then with all this added vegetation of like the lilies here, right? And the plants and the rocks, it gives it that lived in, you know, organic look to it. And imagine if it didn't have any of this, right? Like if we turned, let's turn this off, let's turn that off, like this kind of sucks. So that's why it's important to do all that. And like we've got the fishies floating in the middle of nowhere. So little things like that are important. So just to fly over here, we've got like the ivy here, we've got the courtyard, we've got all the details in here. Then we've got, you know, the pathing here, some simple rocks, pathing over here. And we just want it to feel like this building isn't just plopped on a site. The point of like the ivy and the path is to make it feel like that transition from built to nature is actually seamless. So that's why it's important to add like all these little elements. That way it doesn't feel out of place, right? Because if it feels out of place, now back to my horizon comment, it's not going to look realistic. Okay. So I'm going to drop that Dropbox link in there again. So we've got all that. And then somebody was asking about depth. Where was it? I forgot where it was. But when it comes to adding depth, my go-to, if I go back to my hero image, if you pay attention to this tree here, this tree is actually placed here in a not realistic place. Look, you see how it's like in the middle of the lake? Well, the reason I did that is so when I have this image here, I've got this really nice tree that's framing the top left corner, because if I turn this off, it looks a little plain, it looks a little empty. But if I have this here, it's add some darkness and some contrast, because contrast is what's going to give us depth, right? So the building is lit up, but my pond is dark. My edges are dark. It's kind of like a natural vignette. That's why a lot of like professional rendering companies, they always have like some sort of like random tree. Well, this is what I was talking about with being like correct versus the narrative. This is helping me tell the human eyeballs to look at my building, don't look at anything else. It's all about focus. It's kind of like crazy the amount of control you actually have with your image storytelling from just adding elements like this. Okay, so make sure you have stuff like this. It really, really helps with focus. Then talking about focus, you can always use your depth of field. And if you're not using depth of field, I don't know why not. What you should do is click your building, then right click, and then crank this to about 7. And that's going to give you a nice blur. That way it's not super sharp. It's not in your face. Okay. It's also going to blur out this stuff and also blur out some of the stuff in the background. Because again, we really need to reiterate, we want foreground, midground, background. So that is achieved by distance. It's also achieved by post-processing like depth of field and fog. Okay, you can add a little bit of fog. You see how it's adding some volumetrics there. That's nice. That's totally like up to you. It's not like required, but it is like a nice thing to add. But you want to be very, very, very subtle. Okay, you don't want to do too much. You want to do a little bit. So I'll lower that. So that's that image. And again, this is doing a huge, huge part of it. Then we've got this guy. Once the scene is built up, right, you can basically place the camera here. Like we've got this beautiful pond. We've got all the transitions here. We want to make sure it's framed nicely. So what you could do, if you ever have, trouble with like framing things, feel free to turn on your rule of thirds and just lock on the horizon here. Here, I was more interested in having like a nice separation of sky. So I break up my image into three thirds, right? This is the 1/3 band, second third, and then the third band, right? The middle is the architecture, the bottom is the nature, and the top is the sky. So I was saying earlier, I don't like my tall trees because then it would mess with what I've got here. Okay, so clear bands. And if you have a hard time visualizing this, just click the grid button. It's there for a reason. And you'll see like it's not 100% perfect, because this is what I was saying earlier. It's not about being 100% correct. Like you ever like see that meme like actually, like that's what I'm talking about. You don't need to do that. You can be a little bit off. It's all about just making sure it works for your image. And the other thing we were clever about is we have our like piano here, and that was kind of like the focus. So it's just like it's dead there right in the center. So I'll show you some other views. This is that framing thing I was talking about again. This is just a tree, right, that we have over here, and we're using depth of field again to kind of blur it out, and we're using contrast, so it's dark in the foreground, bright in the midground. Okay. And then I need some water. And for those having troubles with the Dropbox folder, I have a theory that maybe it's getting downloaded too much and they're throttling it. The folder does work. I have it like on my Dropbox. I see it. So definitely try afterwards, and then just shoot me an email if it's not working. But it seems like some people are able to download it. I think it's just too many people are downloading at the same time. But anyways, in this view, we've got our right. It's the same thing. We've got nature band, built band, and then sky band. So it's okay to have this negative space. And I'll also say it's okay to change your aspect ratio. This I'm using 4:3. A lot of people just default by 16:9 and like that's it. It's okay to do 4:3. 4:3 is okay. You can also do like vertical portrait. Like this is actually one I was toying with before that I thought would actually look nice if I did it vertical. So vertical would be 9:16. And before I maximize this, I do want to point this out. You see how I have this picture-in-picture screen? If I click this guy right here to pin it, this is how you actually get the trees in perfectly. So this is the camera. All I have to do is just find a tree, and then watch this. I hold down shift, I drag it out, and look at that. Now I can plan where this tree goes perfectly. You see that? So picture in picture is your best friend. Okay. But you can see this is a nice rendering. And this is portrait. Again, it's pond built sky. Like this is lovely. So Joe's asking what's like the typical architectural FOV. Well, here's the fun part about photography. It's whatever you want it to be. So here are the rules. And I say rules loosely because this is an artful profession. Use them as guidelines. So I'll walk you through these. The human eye, it's reported it's like 18 to 22 with a focal length. Me personally, I don't like the look of 18 because 18, I feel like it always, I'm not saying it's bad, but it always gives me like PTSD of when you go apartment shopping and or hunting and you see like these really big bedrooms and then you get there and they're actually much smaller. It's because like they abuse the focal length in their cameras and they do something like this. So a lot of photography, they'll use like 30, oh whoops, 35 is a good one. I think it's a little too much. Sometimes I'll be at 28, sometimes 35, and then if I want to be really zoomed in, maybe like a 45 or 50. There's a lens that's 50 millimeters. We call it like the nifty 50 because it's like it's really good for like portraits as well as photography. It does flatten the image a little bit in terms of depth, but this is a stylistically thing. And you know, some people are saying, yeah, 25 to 50. Totally agree. I don't go beyond that unless I'm doing, I don't know, something crazy. 85 is too much. But just know like the human eyeballs, 18 to 22. Me personally, 28 I like, 35 I like. And then if I want to be a little artsy, you know, we'll bump it up to 50. Like this pond shot, for example. We wanted to be a little artful here, and so we went with 65 because I liked the way it kind of tightened everything. I liked the balance of like the pond in a diagonal band here with like the grass up here and then the tree here. It just made sense. So I don't want to say like there's hardcore rules, but use those guidelines. You know, is once you learn the rules, you can break them. You know, as an artist. Yeah, and Lakshmana, yeah, 55 to 65, interior 35 to 45. Yeah, the interiors are tricky because you don't want to go too low or too high. And I'll give you like one example. And like this isn't filled out all the way, but just as an example, if I'm in here and I just create a new view and I go to my camera, this right here is, let me make this big. We'll do 22. So you see how big this room looks? Like that's why I hate that. And then 35, it feels a little bit grander. And then 45, it gets a little bit smaller, but I do like the look of it. Like aesthetically speaking, I like the look of it. Okay. So just be mindful of that. Okay. So anyways, we talked about our camera settings and everything. So it's like once you have all these placed correctly, usually around eye height, framing something interesting of the building, you're going to want to go and hit render. Okay. Once you hit render, you know, some of the things I usually do, I usually make sure my aspect ratio is being pulled from my camera or my scene. And I use 2K. I use 2K because most of my work is transferred through email, usually uploaded into a PDF and then it's just like a deck. It's like 10 pages in one PDF for most projects. So I don't need 4K or 6K. I only need that if I know it's going to be for like a construction sign or, you know, something blown up or a poster. Usually web, you don't want to go too high. It's going to slow down the website. Anyways, once you render it out, let's pretend like we rendered it out. You're going to want to do some sort of AI post-processing. So I was playing with this last night, and what I've been doing because of how good the new AI systems gotten, I've been playing with both of these. The AI enhancer is very, very good, but also the AI style transfer. And what I've noticed, you know, I made a video about this. If you use the realistic and upload a reference and you do 0.1 and 1, it's really good. But what I did last night is actually played with higher style transfer settings. So let me show you what they are. So this guy is 0.2 and 1. And just to zoom in, I thought it did like a fantastic job. So it actually fixed all the bricks and it made the lighting look really, really nice. So that was 0.2. And then this was, I believe, 0.3. And I just love like all the contrast it added. So I thought that was awesome in terms of the lighting and everything. So I would recommend 0.3 and 1. The regular enhancer, it's just going to give you a little boost. It's not going to be something so so drastic, but I love the look of this. Like, look at the gradient we get in the sky. Look at the fluffy clouds. Like, this is great. So really, really a big fan of this, but you do need to be careful about your materials changing. So look, my slats changed to planks. So I would have to do some photoshopping, but I do love the overall look of it. Okay. So again, AI style transfer, this guy, realistic, and we do 0.2 and 1, and 1 is to match it. So that was a quick little demo. I've got a couple more slides I want to talk about how we can take this to the next step. But this, use this project, learn from it. You guys have all my brush settings, light settings, and my AI settings. So there's a lot of value I'm giving to you guys here. So I hope it's useful. So now that we've got that, I kind of want to recap. We talked a little bit about like the difference of like how to go from like flat to really beautiful images. We talked about the 3-step formula and how important it is. Talked a little bit about, the storytelling, like the entourage, the importance of entourage and creating, stories. Like that is huge. So definitely play with that scene. We're going to be sending out a replay. So watch that for sure. So if you loved all this and you just want to, go to the next step, you want to go from good to photoreal, I'd love to help you out. I'd love to continue working together. And this is kind of how I feel like we're at right now. It's like, I have confidence. You could take what you learned right now, go and do your own thing, and you get okay results. But if that were the only option, that'd be okay. But I feel like we actually have another option. We could do this together. Okay. So I figured out a way where we can work together. I can help you improve, become better. It'd be an active role in your life in terms of becoming a better ArchViz artist. So my goal is to empower you with every single resource I have. Again, 15 years of experience. So this door is where I want most of you guys to go through. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our new ArchViz Academy Pro Plan. We are fortunate enough to be the actual only official D5 render training platform. So I'm so excited about that. There's going to be, some news about it, but you're hearing about it here now. But what I've done is I've taken all my experience, I've basically recorded it. I've created foundational videos. I've created D5 tutorials. I give you feedback in our community here. It's basically like a college class. I've turned all of this into a college class. So if you liked, this little snippet, you're going to love this. And this is just like a little preview of what's in here. So I want to talk a little bit about, why I'm so proud of it. Here are images of our students' work in the ArchViz Academy. They're doing phenomenal jobs. And I love what everyone's doing. I love the community. And I'm so proud of them. If you're curious about like what it is, it is a community, but it's also training materials. And I'm constantly uploading new resources like the updated feedback GPT. If you've been using that, we do, office hours, feedback sessions. I give you so many 3D models and everything. And of course, it's a community. So like you can meet other people in your space, and you can talk, you can, do discussion boards and everything. So it's a pretty incredible thing. So what I want to do, and I teased this earlier, is I want to give anyone who's interested exclusive bonuses just for like attending this this webinar. Okay, because I appreciate you coming out on your weekend to listen to me talk about all this stuff. So I want to go through all of them. In August, I'm going to be hosting a paid boot camp. It's a 2-day boot camp. If you join the ArchViz Academy, this is actually going to be free. So it's going to be $300 because it's 2 days. It's a lot of effort. It's hands-on live training. Giving that to you for free. Okay, that's bonus number 1. Bonus number 2, I'm going to give you a free item or scene from my Shopify. So if you like my scenes and you want to download them, I'll give it to you for free. That's bonus number 2. Bonus number 3, I'm going to give you my checklist so you can actually go through your projects really quickly, make sure they're done correctly. So all this stuff I'm talking about, you get in a nice little checklist form. You can print it, it's digital. Then 4, I'm going to give you your Fix Your Render Toolkit. You're going to have a nice little companion video talking about all the steps that fix your renderings. I'm going to give you a before and after guide of what settings affect what. That's all free. Okay, so we're now on bonus 4. Then I've got a brand new little masterclass coming out where I'm talking about how to do lighting in these 3 different styles. Okay. This is going to come out very soon. We're going to tackle daylight, atmospheric, and night all in one masterclass. And then if you sign up, again, you're going to get a 30-minute strategy call with me. We could talk about anything. We'll talk about your goals, we'll talk about how to get better at D5. It doesn't matter. That's bundled in there. So what I'm doing is taking all this stuff that's actually worth more than the course itself. So you get the boot camp ticket, the store scene, checklist, fix your render packs, masterclass videos, and a meeting with me, all for like over, I don't know, $1,000 at this point. Costs more than the program. So if any of this is interesting to you, stay tuned. I want to show you some stuff that our ArchViz Academy members have been saying, because I'm so proud of it. Here's an example from Jochen, just talking about like the quality of our course and all the content being super impressive. Me supporting everybody. I'm constantly in there as a forum. I'm answering questions all the time. I take the time to answer your questions. It could be about anything. It could be about ArchViz, could be about D5, could be about life. I'm there. Some other examples from Stella and Raphael. It's like going to school online. And that's, I took my teaching at colleges and universities and was like, why can't I just do this globally? Why do I have to go to class? Like I can give this to, our global audience. So this community, people all around the world, and people are just happy to be part of it. So I'm so happy about that. Here Luca's talking about how amazing these workflows have been. His work is just incredible now. I remember when he came in, his work was really good, but now it's just like, it's awesome. And I just love that he sees how supportive and inspiring the community is. And you can see from Pat, he agrees that all the lessons are super hands-on. We literally walk through in detail, like excruciating detail, every single setting in D5 and the foundations, of course. And a great little review here by Nicola. ArchViz Academy has been an incredibly valuable platform for growing my skills in ArchViz. Being part of the Academy feels like having a team behind you every step of the way. And I just think that's great because that's really what I strive for. So we actually have someone from the Academy with Shara that I would actually love if she could just like talk about, what she thinks about all this, because it'd be great if she can just share her experience, because I'm talking about how amazing it is, but I want you guys to kind of hear from somebody else. So she's been in the Academy for a couple months now, and I'm just gonna talk to her. If you have questions for her, we can ask that as well, but I'm gonna ask her some questions, and just so you guys have an understanding of what goes on. So with Shara, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again for like doing this. I just think it's great that we have like people that show up from the community. It's not just like an offline thing. It's kind of like an a synchronous thing. People are always coming to live events. But I would just love to share, or I'd love to hear your story about why you wanted to join the ArchViz Academy and join the community.
Okay, I think at first it's a bit frustrated because it's a bit difficult to get proper feedback when maybe, okay, it's nice to get compliments from friends, like, oh, that looks good, looks great, or that kind of thing. Like, it's nice, but then it's not as in depth as I probably would need, especially because I'm coming from a place of not having learned ArchViz in the past, because I only did, I studied architectural technology and I mostly did documentation sets. So very little ArchViz required there. It's just very simple, straightforward construction drawings. Anyway,
Yeah.
so for joining the quiz, sorry, the question was about community.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we're so glad we have you there. But yeah, that was like the big part of why I wanted to do this. Like I want to act as your professor. Like although it's not like part of a university, like I'm there to help support. So then I guess so far, what's been your favorite, part of the community, or like what's been your experience so far?
I'd say, okay, first of all, I think it's invaluable because I'm able to share the work that I'm doing that I'm stuck on and get feedback on it that's live and more in depth as well. Because that's one thing I've been struggling with beforehand, before joining. Also, what
Yeah.
else? Yeah, it's been fantastic having other like fellow students that they're learning the same thing, but they're from have different backgrounds and work in different fields, but it's sort of related. And then getting their feedback or opinions as well. But also, it's also valuable that I get to see what they're sharing and even see the feedback that you give to them. So it seems like it feels like as if I'm always learning while part of the academy, even if it may not be my work necessarily, it might be someone else's. It's continuous learning and development, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, that's actually a great point because what I've noticed is like, and that's why we do a lot of these review sessions is like something I say to some person probably resonates with somebody else because it's not like you're the only person with that same exact issue because a lot of this stuff through D5 it happens to most of us. I mean, like the storytelling stuff, the materials, like a lot of people deal with the same issues. So I'm glad you find the value there. And then just like last question, I mean, what's your favorite thing inside of the academy so far?
It's sort of the same thing as before. It's the feedback. Like I think I really craved that before having joined so far. So now that I'm part of the academy, it's fantastic that it's a group of people that we could I can learn with, and then especially as a freelancer, it's really helpful to have this amount of feedback that's more specific to this profession that we're doing. Instead of relying on comments like, yeah, that render is good or it looks good, or when a client says, oh, I want you to make it pop or sparkle, whatever that means. So it's nice
Right.
that they can get feedback from other people that are also in the industry. Yeah, so that's been my
Yeah,
favorite thing, the feedback.
that's
And
great.
community, sharing resources as well, like links to this, tips here and there. Yeah, it's all that
Yeah,
together.
that's a good point. Yeah, everyone has like their own sort of resource, like their go-to. Like people are asking, oh, which asset libraries? And like I've noticed some people use different asset libraries for me, and they share that. Yeah, no,
Mm.
that's great. Yeah, thank you so much for your, you attending this and sharing your experience, and as well as joining the
No
academy.
worries.
You've been great, and I
Thank
always
you.
I always bring this up, but like Oshara was working on this image, and we were doing a feedback session, doing some back and forth. And then her final image actually got featured by D5. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I was like browsing through Instagram
That's
and I see the
fantastic.
rendering. Yeah. I was like, this is awesome. I've seen this. So really, really happy to see your growth from day one to where you're at now. So thank you
Thank you very
again.
much.
And then I think I have a couple other Academy students in here. If anyone, is interested in, sharing your experience, raise your hand and Damien can unmute you. Otherwise I'll talk about, my conclusion here. But yeah. So yeah, if all this sounded interesting, we've got a special, plan going on right now. Our pro plan starts at $60 a month. We're discounting it from 99. Or if you don't want a subscription, you buy it once. It's lifetime. You get all the future updates. You get everything. What's nice is we have buy now, pay later. So if you want to use Klarna or Affirm, whatever, you can actually break it up into monthly payments, and that's actually what a lot of people have been doing. So Damien's going to share the sign up link, but you can go to archviz3dacademy.com/pro if you want to sign up. But yeah, if this is all interesting and you want to see a little bit about what goes on in the academy, I can definitely go through Circle. If not, thank you to those that have attended and everything. I hope you learned something, and as always, really appreciate you guys being part of the community. So I'm going to swing over to the community because I think the community is awesome. And yeah, to Damien's point, we're running the bonuses for today as like a live webinar, discount, bonus. If any of that sounded juicy, go for it. But this is how it works. We use a platform called Circle, and this lets us host the course as well as all these different groups. So you can introduce yourself. That's how we find out, if you're an interior designer or an architect. So I understand, where you're coming from. And then if you meet someone else in your profession, you guys can talk and everything. There's direct messaging. We handle our announcements through here. We've got like a forum board. People can post images for feedback. And then we go in here, people will comment. It's not just me, to give you feedback and everything. And then we've got the whole main course, and it's growing every single week. Like every week I'm dropping new premium tutorials that aren't available on YouTube. So overall, it's growing every single week. People have loved it so far, and we're looking to expand this cohort through our webinar today. But yeah, just as a recap, these are all the bonuses that you get. So don't forget, if you're interested in doing it, I highly recommend you do it sooner rather than later, so you don't lose all this, because this is like $1,000 that you get for free. Okay. And then if you have any questions about this, and you want, you're not comfortable talking now or messaging now, feel free to email us at info@archviz.academy, and we'll get back to you. But again, those bonuses are available for today. Anyone who signed up for the webinar will get that feature. Yeah, and yeah, the D5 critiques are all part of that. That's part of the feedback area right over here. where people can just post an image at any time. You finish it, and then it's available, and then I can go in there and comment it and give you feedback. And this is a regular thing, which is great. It's happening, 24/7. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. If not, thank you again. Think about the bonuses. Think about joining. We'd love to have you. I'm really excited for this upcoming cohort. All right, great. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And let's just bring up the bonuses just in case anyone wants to see it one last time. All right, Hussein's asking how to move the clouds in HDRI. Well, there is no way other than animating the rotation of your clouds. So you could have a scene where the rotation's 30 and the next scene rotation's 35, and it would rotate it. Your clouds won't move unless you use geo and sky. All right, cool. Any other questions? Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thank you again to those who have come. Yeah, today was a fun one. It was definitely a nice spin on our regular Photoreal webinar formula. But yeah, I'm thinking next time we'll start talking about interiors. But if you join the academy, we cover interiors and exteriors, and we're going to be releasing 2.11 content very, very soon. And then question on color grading tips. What I would always recommend is keep it subtle. Don't do too much. I would actually use a color LUT or LUT over the direct color grading, because I feel like that can get you into weird positions where it doesn't look super realistic. You don't want to go too far in your circles. So for those that don't know what I'm talking about, where they put it, and here, effect, under color grading, like don't go too far is my point. Always keep it very, very, very subtle. So yeah, you can tweak shadows and global and all that. Keep it subtle. I would focus more on, is the image warm or cool first. That's my biggest tip. But then I would also recommend just finding a LUT or using a the AI atmosphere match to auto generate that for you. Let me go back to the deck. All right, cool. So that's all I've got for today. Again, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email at info@archviz.academy. And think about signing up today. These bonuses will not be around after today. All right. Thank you, everybody. Had a lot of fun. And I'll see you next time. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And if anyone wants to hang around and ask me something, that's fine. I've got a couple minutes, but don't feel like you need to stick around if you got things to do. Hitchum is asking about grass. Well, what do you want to know about grass? Lots of ways to make grass these days. But personally, with the grass, my go-to is usually like a scatter instead of the 3D grass material. DMOS D5 critique new version. Oh, the GPT. Yeah, the GPT. Yeah. Version 2. Yeah, that's being trained right now. So I took all the feedback. I took all the feedback from version 1, and that's why we did the what's it called, the little pilot. And the biggest change you're going to see, and I'll make an announcement in the academy, is that the grading is going to be a little bit broader. I've been able to tell it, or give it a better example of what should be like a 1 and what should be a 5. It seemed like it was a little too enthusiastic, and so if you tried really, really hard, then you could get like a 1. But I feel like I want to make that band a little bit bigger. But anyways, I got some really good feedback, but version 2 will be coming out soon. Okay, so I know when I saw your scene, but when I try it, it feels weird. On Westbrook. I don't know what you mean by weird. But yeah, generally I'll grab something like this, and now that they have these presets, I'll use one of those because the issue with the 3D grass is it's just one mesh and it's repeated instead of a scatter which has all these different meshes with control. Monitor quality does not affect it, does not affect final render. It just affects your performance because HD is going to run more performant than 2K or 4K. And then where do you model your projects, SketchUp or Rhino? Me personally, SketchUp, but I have a couple of people that model for stuff in Rhino. The preset for scattering, I usually use one of these Meadow ones, and then I tweak it. Okay, can one import Revit? Yeah, Karen. Yeah, actually in the Academy I have a little bonus series on how to get Revit into D5 and like a whole course. It's an hour long. But yeah, it's I don't want to say it's as easy as Rhino or SketchUp, and that's because of how Revit handles the material parameter. So there is like a good export setting out of D5, sorry, out of the D5 plugin in Revit that helps with it. But I find that the categories get a little frustrating with Revit if people don't do it correctly. Um, and then Philip, I'll be joining the Academy. That's great. We love that. How do I log in and is it free to the Academy? No, so what happens is when you click that link, the one that Damien has just shared. If you scroll to the bottom, you have two plans. You could either do lifetime, where you never have a subscription, and you could do buy now, pay later, or discounted to $60 a month, and you have it for. I mean, if you do this, you have it forever, and then this you can cancel anytime, but it is a monthly subscription. Um, Many detailed questions, and also want to share. Yeah, sure. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you, Philip, and hopefully you as well. Um, but yeah, the one of the reasons we have to go this route is just because the constant feedback and support that I'm giving you guys. Unfortunately, I can't do it for free. But this helps supports the YouTube channel, more content, and the academy, so I can keep giving you guys the best stuff. If I purchase monthly pro plan today, can starting date be next month? If I purchase monthly pro plan today, can the starting date be next month? That's a good question. Jonathan, I mean, Damien, I think you're here. I don't know if you can answer that. If we can change the start date, if you want to take advantage of the bonuses, I'm guessing. But yeah, that's something we could probably figure out. Yeah, just shoot me an email. I'm gonna drop my personal email here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, send us archviz.academy. Send us an email and we'll take care of you. We'll figure it out. Or info at. What do you think about AI? Will it take the place of D5 render? Yeah, I mean, saying it's a great question. I'm like a little torn because I do think for like a static view, it does a really good job. But the problem is once you turn the camera, like the same settings, like the material, the lighting, it's never 100%. And like they may figure that out at one point, but I don't know. I think there's something about real-time rendering you can't replace with AI unless AI somehow does real-time rendering, which maybe that does happen. But I just think in terms of like an art and a skill, I can't see it going away completely. I think it is going to take some work, but I don't see it like wiping us out. Like I could see AI wiping out like translators jobs, like stuff like that, and like copywriting maybe, but the 3D modeling part I feel like is so important for a designer's like process. So that's why I can't say. I'm just speculating. But anyways, I don't know for sure. what the future holds. But I think we're safe. I do think the future is probably more in immersive design, like stuff that's being done with Unreal Engine, which D5 is based off of a version of Unreal Engine that's modified. But I do think stuff like that is probably going to be more of the norm um, in the future. Yeah, but I don't see it going away. I just feel like there's so many times where I sit with a client and like we fly around the model and I don't know how AI gets rid of that. Or just the curation of imagery is like why we're here. Yeah, because AI can just generate crap all day long. But like with renderings, at least you have the control and you have the eye to say like this is a good image or bad if you know what you're doing. But yeah. Anyways, it takes some artistic but not commercial use. It takes some artistic but not takes artistic. Yeah, AI takes. Yeah, I mean AI. It's like it can create all these like beautiful images, but I don't know. It's tricky. I think once AI does real time, then that's probably when I'd be a little concerned. I just think there's too many hallucinations right now. Yeah, like right now there's like things like Runway and Kling that take an image to video and it does a good job. But again, it's hallucinations. And that's where things get a little weird with designers because they want it to be like pretty close to their design. Once it starts generating all these different like elevations and everything, it's a little weird. Um, and it's great. I'm seeing some people sign up for the academy, so that's awesome. So thank you to those that are doing that. All right, awesome. Well, I think that's it for now. If you need anything, definitely email us. And hope to see you guys in the academy. All right, see ya.